The EOS 650 Canon 35mm SLR is the first in the series of the EOS cameras, introduced 1987, the first to take the Canon EF autofocus mount lenses. It's compatible with all of the EF mount lenses made from 1987 up through the ones designed for the DSLRs today, as I understand, except for the EFS lenses. The EFS lenses are designed for the newer DSLRs with the smaller sensors, and those will not fit. But otherwise, the Canon lenses that have the EF mount will work on this camera. I'm going to put it through its paces here so you can see it in operation and decide if you're interested in buying it. If I just load in a battery, it takes a 2CR5. This battery is not included in the sale, but I'm just using it as a demonstration here. And we'll put the grip back on, tighten that thumb tight is good enough for now. And then we have the on-off switch here. If we turn it on, we see over here on the LCD, it's got a manual mode, and if I hold down the mode switch and work the main dial across, we've got program, time value or shutter priority, AV or aperture priority, or something called depth. I don't know what that is, but let's put it back on manual for a moment here. Turning the main dial, adjust the shutter speed all the way from 1/2000th of a second to the other extreme of bulb and a full 30-second exposure. So you can program in some long exposures with this camera. And then to set the aperture, if we push this little button that says M here right below the stop down preview, then we can set the aperture value. And metering in this works really nicely. Looking through the viewfinder, I verified that. So we can fire the shutter, and right now it's set on continuous, so if I hold this down, and if we were to do a longer or shorter shutter speed, pretty fast. You can adjust that that setting here by pushing this blue button down here and set this to S for single. So now when I hold the button down, it'll just do one picture and film advance and then wait for it to be pressed again. Or we can set the timer here by setting it to the little timer picture there, and then when I push this button, the light starts flashing, and as it gets closer to the time that it's going to fire, it'll speed up and give you a little warning. So there we are. Next, I thought I would put some film in. We open up the back here, and this has the contacts for reading your ASA or ISO value right off your cartridge, if you have that. If you have, maybe you roll your own film into cartridges that don't have that built in, you can still use them. And I'll just demonstrate that first. We'll load the film in, get the leader up into where it's supposed to be there. Close that. Okay, it's advanced to picture number 1. It's flashing the ISO value because it doesn't know exactly what it is. So to manually set that, we hold these two buttons down together, and then we can rotate the main dial and change it to what we want it to be. So maybe it's black and white plus or tri-X film or something like that. So it's ISO 400. So that's set now. And then it's still set to run the timer, and I can change that here in a little bit. I'm going to set that to single shot, and then to a longer exposure so that we can look in. We'll set it to a full second, so then we can look in and we can see the film in there. Okay, so that's working. Then I'm going to set it to a faster shutter speed and set that to continuous, and just fire off a bunch of these. Now we're up to picture 10. Okay, and there it's reached the end, and now it's counting back as it's winding the film back into the housing. And there it stopped. So now we know it's safe to open up and unload our film, and then you could process this if you wanted to. Of course we won't on this one. This camera also features a back that is removable. We can work that, and then it can communicate with some different data backs that were available through these contacts here. This was the basic back that did not have any controls or any display, and that just locks there, and you just work this little pin here, just set that in, and there it's back on. So very easy to do. It's got a nice metal tripod socket and a nice eye cup here, and pretty tough, good camera for somebody who wants to get into some film photography. And if you have a bunch of Canon EF lenses, you already have your lenses.